My name is Gordie Longshaw, and Stephanie Mendelson, our treasurer. We started out with 150 some people, maybe 60, about 2 months ago. Guess how many people are here? Around 340 people. How about that? The largest in the state of Ohio. All those nominees should be honored because all these people are taking time out on a Sunday afternoon to spend time and money to drive out here. What a privilege. We thank you for being here. At this time, Joe Greenlee will have some remarks. Please come on up here, Joe.
I'd just like to take a second to thank everyone for coming tonight. What a great turnout for an outstanding group of inductees. This is by far and away the largest crowd we've ever had. I think it beats the old crowd by more than 100 people. That says a lot about the strong following that wrestling has in the state of Ohio. I'd like to thank the board of directors. It takes a lot of work to put this together. Gordie Longshaw, a special thanks to Stephanie Mendelson. Without her, this wouldn't take place. I'll guarantee you that. It wasn't Gordie, it wasn't me, it wasn't the board of directors, it was really her. Last but not least, I'd like to thank the inductees for their hard work, their dedication, the sacrifices they have made to make the sport of wrestling better, the sport that we all love. The inductees' names will be permanently enshrined in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame in Stillwater, Oklahoma. They've made changes in many people's lives over the years. And one of the qualifications to be in the Ohio chapter of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame is 25 years of service. To me, that says a great thing. Some of these guys have 25 plus years. We'd like to call upon everybody in this group to forward us names of people that could be inducted in the future. The state of Ohio, this bank was 3 years old. It started off with kind of a dream in 6 or 7 different people, and our first banquet was around 180, maybe 175. Second banquet was about 210, and then this banquet's already 350. And we realize that there's a lot of people in the state of Ohio that deserve to be recognized. We also realize that we're years behind, but we need the help of everybody in here to make nominations for new inductees. We're very proud of the inductees that are here this year. We're proud of the inductees that have been inducted in the past. Excuse me. I'll turn it back over to Gordie.
Thank you, Joe. If you go by your program, we had to make a change. By the way, you can see the honorees, their picture in the bios, give you all the information about them. But this time, because of time element, we're lucky to have the legend of wrestling in the state of Ohio, in my opinion. Of course, I'm biased. Went to school with this guy. He was outstanding, not just in wrestling. He played baseball with Joe Negro in the Little League Hall of Fame, football. Also, he went on to college, West Liberty State College. NAIA, they just won the National Baseball Championship celebration 50 years ago, 1964. But Bobby was always not a character, just a hard-determined guy. And I'm talking about Bobby Douglas. You know, after graduation, he did so well, and the national tournament was held at Kent State, and the NIA, when he was a state, national champ, he could wrestle Division I and compete. And he did so well that Oklahoma State said, man, we're taking this guy. So he left the Wheating, West Virginia area and went to Oklahoma State. And from then on, it became history because he became a legend. I can't think of any other coach that coached more wrestlers, been more Olympics as a head coach or assistant coach than Bobby Douglas. And I'm talking about Dan Gable and the rest of all the outstanding wrestling coaches. And I remember in '64 and '68, he was the first black captain of the team, also the first black coach for us in Barcelona. And I can be here all day talking about his credential, but in the meantime, I'm going to bring him up here That's why he's our legend, because he's never been honored in the state of Ohio in terms of our chapter. And we're privileged to have him, Bobby Douglas.
I'd like to just echo a thank you to the fans, the parents, the grandparents, and the supporters of wrestling. This is a sample of the wrestling spirit that exists in the state of Ohio. It's a uniqueness that no other state can claim. There's been at least 4 presidents that were from the state of Ohio. One of the greatest generals of all time, Ulysses S. Grant, was from the state of Ohio. That alone should give us pride, a unique pride that as Ohioans, we have always led the way. Wrestling is in a crisis. We are about to lose wrestling in the Olympic Games. I want this Hall of Fame to reflect the spirit of the Buckeyes, of the people from Ohio, of the pioneers of wrestling. We have approximately 60 Division I wrestlers in the state of Ohio that are 12 years and younger. The most, with the exception of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is ahead because they have a lot of guys that we know are going to go football. But Ohio has a unique spirit that has made America one of the greatest wrestling countries in the world. And we can get better. My purpose for coming here is that I want to celebrate those of you who have worked so very hard to make Ohio the #1 wrestling state in the nation. I want to be here with a message that if we are going to be great as a nation, it's going to start in Ohio. It always has. Your efforts and your energy is what has made wrestling great in America. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to honor the honorees. My wife told me not to say it that way, but I did anyway. But I'm very grateful that I have this opportunity to stand before you. We have an unbelievable group of people that we're putting into the Hall of Fame. There are many, many out there that are just as deserving, and I get calls all the time telling me that they're more deserving. So my hope is that Ohio leads the way in the Hall of Fame. Let's show America what the support of this great sport is in the state of Ohio. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. I hope you all have a very enjoyable evening. I got another 12 hours to drive. And that's why I'm up here now, because I don't want to go to sleep 4 or 5 hours from now on the other side of Indianapolis. You all have a wonderful time. Congratulations to the inductees, and I would say go Buckeyes, but go Ohio.
Thank you, Bobby. Have a safe drive. This wouldn't happen unless you have some directors, and we have the best. This time, would you stand up as I say your name? Our directors for the Ohio chapter of National Wrestling Association, Ray Anthony. Stay standing. Dick Lamotte. Is Dick here? Andy Giuseppe. Andy. Joe Greenlee. Steve Kish. Stay standing, Dick. Robin Rayfield. And Stephanie Minnesota. This time, Joey, introduce Nate.
Ready. All right, it's my pleasure to introduce our MC tonight. I think this man really needs no introduction, but hopefully I can do him some justice. I remember watching Nate Carr wrestle when I was in high school. I remember we had a thing in Iowa called Iowa Public Television, and you got to watch Iowa State, Northern Iowa, University of Iowa wrestle. And I saw some of his greatest matches. I saw some matches that he really wants to remember, and I saw some matches he probably doesn't want to remember, but made a lasting impression on me. Nate Carr is seen in the eyes of the wrestling world as one of the greatest that ever lived. As humble as the day is long, Nate is a whirlwind of activity who strives for excellence in everything he does. If Nate Carr is involved in an endeavor, you can be sure that the product he produces will be of championship caliber. As a pastor, he led the religious congregation in the lifestyle, faith, and giving. He has been successful in wrestling and every endeavor that he has taken on. Tonight's MC is Nate Carr. Nate Carr is a two-time Big 8 champion, three-time NCAA champion while at Iowa State University, 1986 World Cup champion, and 1986 World Cup and Pan American champion, a Goodwill Games champion, and he capped off his storied wrestling career with a bronze medal at the 1988 Olympics in Seoul, Korea. Nate Carr.
It is indeed an honor to be your MC in such an auspicious occasion as to honor these legends that we're going to honor tonight. And we want to thank Joe Greenlee. Thank you for your leadership in the board of directors. Would you give Joe a hand? Well, I'm going to do the invocation. Before I do, I wanted to let you know that the servers will release every table to go and eat, and if some of the older wrestlers are still cutting weight, we would ask you to be patient and understanding with them. But serious, they will release you to start our meal. I feel comfortable here knowing that God himself has a hall of fame of some of the great spiritual leaders. Hebrews chapter 11. He's honoring them. And again, I am honored just to be a part of honoring the inductees tonight. Would you please bow your heads? Dear Heavenly Father and God of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, God, we thank you for how in your sovereign grace that even when we look at the Bible, wrestling is one of the first sports. Thank you for your sovereign grace that we could be a part of one of the greatest sports ever. And now, God, I pray that all of the inductees, I pray that their hearts would be warmed. I pray that they would be encouraged tonight as we say thank you to them. Now, God, I pray that you would bless the food, sanctify it, help it to be nutritious for our bodies. And Lord, we receive it with thanksgiving. And everyone said, amen. 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 Servers. Thank you. If I could have your attention, we are going to get started. If I could have you bring it down, the conversation. Well, thank you, and it is an honor. I almost feel like the lights are on. Well, it is quite an honor to, again, be the MC of tonight as we celebrate the 4th Hall of Fame Wrestling Banquet-Ohio chapter. I just want to digress a little bit. I definitely believe that no strategy, then there is no victory. And that's my intro to introducing my wife of 30 years. Would you please stand up? I come from a family of 16. That was all the ladies only. But yeah, I come from a family of 16, 15 other brothers and sisters. And Dave Zahoransky said, man, you are an underachiever. I told him I had 7. And then I'd just like to also acknowledge the Legacy Award winner who had to move on, Bobby Douglas. What a great impact he has had on the wrestling, not only in Ohio, but in the history of wrestling, our great sport. Dan Gable himself said he has learned more from Bobby Douglas than any other person. Wow. That is quite the compliment coming from the champion, Dan Gable. Also, at this time, I would like the Hall of Famers, the previous Hall of Famers, would you please stand up? I know there's some in the room. Would you just stand up so we can acknowledge you at this time? Would you please stand, Hall of Famers? Again, we thank you for your service and your impact on others. When having a chance to go through some of the inductees and to personally give them a phone call and to talk to them, I definitely seen this consistent thread going through all the guys. And it fits this statement or maxiom that says, success is unto oneself, but significance is unto others. And there cannot be any significance without contributing to the welfare of others. There's an old Southern maxiom I like to say, perhaps you heard it, if you see a turtle on a fence post, know he didn't get there by himself. And so when I look at our first inductee, Andrew Check Lamotte, I'm just in awe of all the great things that he's done. For sure, he is a great American. For sure, talking to him, he is a survivor. He is a cancer survivor, leukemia survivor. And then he uttered these words to me. He said, Nate, wrestling saved my life. Coming back from the war just to fill that void, and he said his older brother, who was a champion at West Liberty, gave him a chance. But what a champion. Purple Heart winner. Because he dared put his life on the line for others. And to me, that is the awesome, he is an awesome champion. And he said this to me, he said, I like helping the average person, the guy that's struggling. Wow. Is that giving back? Even today, he still loves to help others. Would you stand and salute this great American, our first inductee, Moral Courage winner. I present the song and introduce to others, Andrew Lamotte.
Thank you very much. I just got a couple notes here because this is what I don't like to do. But I want to thank the committee at the bottom of my heart for this honor. There's so many people out there, probably more worthy than I am to receive this. But I am so honored to be up here, especially the guys from my high school. With Steve Kish, I graduated with. Art Hehr, one of my idols. Bobby Douglas, of course, Coach Cavalli in the Hall of Fame. I think Walter Larchie. We have such a history, and I am so proud to be a part of that. Like I said, it was my younger brother, Nate, that won the Nationals. He was the second one after Bobby at NAIA. And like I said, when I come home from Vietnam, there was a big void there. And like I say, all veterans think, you know, why am I here? You know, why? My buddies never survived, I'm here. After David won the championship, I was in my 30s before I started coaching. He gave me the chance. And I really believed that saved me. And like I say, I'm so proud to be here. The people that showed up, I want to thank them. Some of my wrestlers, the parents, I consider them as my friends now. My brother David couldn't be here. I would like to mention he had a son, my nephew. He had a liver transplant a few years ago, and he's having trouble again. And so if anybody could say a prayer for him, because David's taking care of him right now. But I love coaching, and what I always try to tell my kids was sports are easy. Honest to God, sports, you should enjoy it. You should have the time of your life. Life is hard. Raising a family, you have putting meals on the table, being a good parent. If you're in the military, staying alive every day, that's hard. Sports, once in a lifetime. I always used to say, give 100% every match. Every match you go out there, it might be your last. How many percentage going, you know, to a higher level and participate? So, you know, thank God that you have a chance to do this. And I want to, like I said, thank your parents, my wife, who's always backed me, my family. If anybody deserves this award, it's her. Joyce, 48 years, stand up. You know, she never caught me. You know, you come home, you have the highs, you have the lows, you're whining, you know, one day you're high, one day you're low. You know, she said, suck it up. She always did. Suck it up. You know, I get so angry with her. But she was right. You know, you can take the good with the bad. And that's where it's going to be. You know, you got to have failures to be successful. I always believe that. You learn, if you don't learn from your failures, you're gone. And like I say, as far, I don't want to be up here, as far as this courage award, I really don't know what that means, you know. To me, just put one foot in front of the other every day. One foot in front of the other. Some guys do extraordinary things under certain times. I don't know. But like Joyce said, you know, suck it up, keep going, and what goes around comes around. And I thank you so much for this award. Like I said, Art, Coach Cavalli, Mr. Mock, all these guys, Bridgeport people, I love them, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Anybody who wants to take a picture, please come up, Joyce.
you, Chick, for those awesome words. Man, his wife is tough.
Yes, she is.
No strategy, no victory, suck it up.
Joyce, you come up.
Matt, if you would, I'd like to pray for Matt right now. Is it Jeff? Okay, just bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we lift up Jeff to you right now. God, we know that, Jesus, you are not only the Savior of our souls, but you are the great physician of our bodies. So I pray that you would strengthen him, those attending his care. I pray that you would give them a strategy that will bring victory. In Jesus' name, amen. Man, thanks, Jim. Thank you. I'll never forget those words. I often get to perform some of the marriages for my wrestlers, former wrestlers, and I look at the bride and the groom and say, now, if there's any problem, I will be up here to administer a front headlock. Just a little threatening there. And just, again, the consistency of the great people that we are honoring tonight. Ray Anthony. And even as you read the Bible, and I challenge you just to consistently look at that, glance at that, to see how outstanding our inductees are. Ray Anthony, I talked to him, and this is a guy that loves wrestling. Both from the coaching and then the officiating. What a champion he is to give back to our sport. And I talked to Ray, and one of the things he said he liked about wrestling was the brotherhood. He used that term because the firemen used that, the brotherhood term, that this guy has your back. And he paused and said that no one works harder than a wrestler. And he told me an interesting story, and he did not mention any names at all. He said, I know a coach one time who really wanted to win the state championship, the conference tournament, and he didn't win, and he was very upset, Joel. And he said, all of you guys, you find your own way home. And Anthony, Ray and his wife, took those guys home. The guys that didn't have a way home, he took them home. And he said this, we've been friends for a lifetime. Would you help me to introduce the song and present to others Ray Anthony Senior Lifetime Service Award. Give him a hand.
First, I want to thank the committee and the folks that nominated me for this award. I think it's very humbling to be up here with the folks in our wrestling community, the folks, the inductees that are going in today. I want to congratulate you. I want to thank everybody for coming out, for all of us. It just shows the strength we have in wrestling in the state of Ohio, in this country. But I tell you, I could never do this if it wasn't for the love of my wife and my family. You know, for 40 years I've been doing this, going all over the country, all over Ohio. And, you know, the support I got from her is second to none. This award's really for her, not for me and for my family. I'm very privileged tonight to have all my family, my football coach, my best friend, friends, all the guys I ref with, whether it's wrestling, football, the support, obviously the agitation that goes with it, and that the administrators from my school, wrestling people, when they heard that I was being inducted, they were I think they were happier at that time than me because I didn't quite realize everything I went with it. I never expected myself to be up here. But Vince Matucci was our state rules interpreter for years, and he had the foresight to ask me to become the new state rules interpreter when he was stepping down. And just one story about that, the late Don Ferris, my cousin, he would try to get Vince to get me in some of the bigger tournaments. And Vince says, nah, that kid's not ready, that kid's not ready. Finally, one day, there was an opening, and he needed me as much as I needed him. And then we become lifelong friends after that. And Tony Campbell was my first state tournament. I was a little kid coming down the state tournament. Tony was there when my son made the state tournament, and I had the privilege of making up the teams. I said, I remember that, how Tony helped me through that weekend. And my son, Ray, who's one of the finest officials that we have in the state, he was with Tony also. And my other son, that was, didn't like the officiating end of it. He didn't like people yelling at him. Close your ears, I'll get over it. But my daughters, my wife, my family, my mom, all my brothers and that, there's many times I wasn't there for Sunday dinner. And to this day, every day on Sunday, we're at my mom's. You know, so it's one heck of a tradition. But nothing more than the fraternity we have in officiating, coaches and everything. We can be mad 1 minute, 2 minutes later we're there to support each other. I thank every one of you. Committee, thank you.
Ray, I'm sure those wrestlers appreciate you giving them a ride home that evening. And we thank you for all that you have contributed. Our next Lifetime Service Award, Graham Coghill. I actually met him this weekend. I was speaking at the Ohio State Coaches Clinic, and Graham was sitting there. And what a humble man he is. And as I was talking to Graham, he said these words: I would never trade all the years of wrestling. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't trade my years of being in wrestling for anything. This is a man who loves wrestling. There's a maxim that I came up with, that you have to love wrestling more than winning. And eventually you win because of the love of the sport. And I think Graham epitomizes that. And the other thing he said he'd like to teach young men is that never, ever give up. I know he's had some surgery and his wife was worried about him because he still wanted to practice. All these years, it says it in the program, he's still coaching. He's still in the wrestling room, giving away instructions so others can become champions in life. Man, we're just blessed to be here. Blessed to say thank you to those that are impacting our lives. Would you please give a warm welcome for our Lifetime Service Award inductee, Graham Coghill.
Well, I'm going to try to get through this. I've never considered myself a good speaker. But I love wrestling. I've been blessed with some great kids over the years. And I think one of the biggest things that you do as a coach is the type of kids that you turn out. And I'm really proud of all the kids that have stuck with me. First of all, I'd like to thank Roger Boone. He was we were together at Chanel for 30-some years. I was at Chanel for 34 years. And he was a principal and later on president at St. Peter Chanel, which St. Peter Chanel is closed now, but I spent most of my wrestling career there. I'd like to thank all the people that wrote letters of recommendation for me. They are always treasured. I kept all, and my wife helped me quite a bit with this. My wife and I dated all the way through high school. We've been married for 52 years, and I would like to her to say that. And believe me, she knows a lot about wrestling, and then she knows how to give her opinion to my wrestlers and to me when I'm not doing what she thinks we should be doing. I'd like to thank the committee for picking me. This is quite an honor. It's humbling, you know, to never. We were a non-teacher. Ed Goving and myself were both non-teachers at Chanel. We couldn't even be head coaches when we first started in the 78, 79 was my first year there. But it went on that Regis Scaife was listed as the head coach, and we, you know, he very seldom even came to practice. We ran things. They had a teacher at first in the room to make sure that we knew what we were doing. But it turned out that we turned out some great kids, and we were together for 10 years. In that time, we won 3 state titles in a row in the late 80s in Division II. In Division I, we would finish second to St. Ed's in '84, and we're the only school in Ohio to finish first to second in all 3 divisions. So that was, you know. I also would like to thank the man, he's not here tonight because his health is bad, Chuck Keller. I had been working on a construction job in Carolina. I bought a house on Arlington Road in Bedford, and Chuck ran into me. My son was 5 years old, and he says, why don't you come down and help me with this little program for Longwood Y wrestling program. So I took my son Jeff, we went down to this program, and that started my thing. We did real well. Longwood, we had a heck of a program for years. And I think it was 78, I was offered a job, and that's when I started at Chanel, and I stayed there for 30, like I said, for 34 years. 33 of those years, we had somebody at the state tournament. The first year we were there, we didn't qualify anybody, and there was, you know, after that, we had someone there every year. And out of the time that I've been coaching, we've had, I think, 159 wrestlers qualify for the state tournament, and 117 of them placed in the state tournament, and 26 state champs. So our program, I'm very proud of the program we had, and it was tough. When you're a non-teacher, it's tough. You know, you work all day, 10 hours, then you come home, you coach the high school team, which started late, 5 o'clock, we started practice. Some of my coaches that were with me, Larry Vance, Tim Rutherford, who was with me for 20-some years, helping me coach, they were there and they got practice started. and that really helped us out. And then we had little kids come in 3 nights a week, and that was my feeder program at Chanel. But anyway, Chanel, as we went along, Chanel closed, and I went to, asked to go up to Nordonia to help out with the Nordonia program, because my grandson, Andrew Coghill, he was wrestling for Nordonia, so I went up to help out with Nordonia, and they said, well, if you're going to help out, sign a contract. So I signed a contract as an assistant coach, and the next year, Odie and Tienza, who didn't have a teaching job at Chanel, got a teaching job, and so he left. Then they asked me to be head coach, which I never intended to be head coach, so I've been at Nordonia now for 2 years as head coach. But I really believe there's not a sport going that teaches you to be a man like wrestling. I played football. I was in the Hall of Fame as an outstanding athlete. I played football, ran track, but wrestling is a different sport. It takes, you learn life lessons. You're gonna get knocked down, and you are only a loser when you quit getting up. And that's what life is really about. And I changed around a lot of stuff that my wife had wrote out for me to say, but you know, I'm not blaming my wife, and she is like most wives. They can tell you more about what you need to do than anyone else.
They're good coaches.
So yes, my wife could coach, and believe me, there's a lot of my wrestlers here today. You ask any of them, the only other voice today heard in the stands was my wife's. So, thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Graham. And we didn't have this on the program, but our next inductee, Vicky Coghill. You having a good time? I am. Our next Lifetime Service Award winner, much deserved, Arthur R. Hehr. I was talking to Arthur, and what a great guy. I mean, these, man, wrestlers are just great people, and our sport produces some great ambassadors that help impact people's lives away from our great sport. I was talking to Arthur. I said, wow, 2-time state champion. I said, you remember they said that was a long time ago. And he just started laughing, I was laughing. I said, man, were you excited? He's like, oh yeah. But I really enjoyed this statement when Arthur said he pretty much joined the wrestling because of his brother. But he said his brother Ben said, you can join the Bridgeport wrestling team and see all of Ohio. Or you can join the Navy and see the world. That'll work. That'll work. And Arthur did both. Did both. Saw all of Ohio and a little bit of Pennsylvania, he said, but also was a military man, joined the Army. And there was also a great champion, and decided to follow his high school coach and coach and make an impact on young men's lives. Would you please give a warm welcome for our Lifetime Service Award, Arthur R. Hehr.
And that was 58 years ago, you were asking me about, and I can't remember where I went to the bathroom last. Let me try to cover some of these details here. My involvement with wrestling began way back, and that included, of course, my participation, junior high, high school, and then college. And then there was some coaching, a lot of refereeing with Steve Kish. Steve Kish can tell you we were pretty serious about this officiating. As an athletic director for many years, and a parent, I had a son who wrestled, was a pretty good little wrestler, and now I'm a grandfather of a wrestler at Tri-Valley. So and he's doing pretty good too, so watch out for Gabe Hehr in the future. Okay, our coach has been mentioned a couple times this evening, George Kowalik. He was the father of wrestling in the Ohio Valley. And one thing about George, he was a stickler for detail. He was probably the best organizer I ever knew. And that's what it takes to be a good coach, a good father, a good citizen. He was, on the job all the time. He taught me to listen, and I know all the other Bridgeport boys that are here today will tell you the same thing. George Kowalik, when he spoke, you listened because you didn't want him to tell you the second time. So that was a good lesson that I got from being with him. The practices at Bridgeport back in the 50s were very intense. We had an emphasis on fitness and all the components of fitness with flexibility, agility, strength, endurance, everything that was included in fitness. We even had gymnastics. We warmed up doing tumbling. If you weren't on the mat, you were on the horizontal bar, the rings, doing different things with those apparatuses. We didn't lift weights. You didn't have to lift weights. Wrestlers lift wrestlers. And then, of course, with the apparatuses, we were lifting our own weight and getting in shape. So the fundamentals, he stressed, so much. The technique, our practices were fundamentals, technique, and of course, one thing I really liked about Coach Kowalik, he says to get in shape in order to wrestle, you wrestle. We didn't have to run, and I hated running. So the only thing, if you had to lose some weight, you had to do a little bit of running, but that was a personal thing. So that was, a typical practice session or a season. You worked and you worked hard. Well, with those ideals and his methodology, I was a teacher for 35 years, and I followed basically to the letter everything that he did. And I enjoyed the years of coaching and teaching, refereeing, as well as George did. The 50s, we were talking about joining the Bridgeport High School wrestling team, see Ohio, joined the Navy, see the world. Back then, there was no interstate. A trip to Columbus or the Cleveland area, it was quite a trip. We made the trip here in about 2.5 hours. Back in the 50s, that was a 4.5 hour trip, a long haul. Okay? So, looking back at the period, gasoline was a quarter, a bottle of pop was a dime. We used to put our peanuts in that bottle of pop, drink the pop, eat the peanuts. But anyway, that was life back then. The state tournaments, I was looking at some of those old state tournament programs the other day. The first few years in my wrestling career, we were up in the Cleveland area. Lakewood High School, I recall, was one of these schools that held the state tournament. In '59, the year Bridgeport High School won the state tournament, was the first year at St. John's Arena. And that was quite a treat for some little boys from the Valley going into that St. John's Arena. I can recall walking in there and looking around and said to myself, well, they could put a lot of hay in this building. it was something else in that big St. John's Arena, which of course is antiquated now. Okay. Some people I'd like to point out and thank in closing, all my friends and relatives sitting here, and again, some of the Bridgeport boys. There's one there, and they're everywhere. They're like dirt. They're everywhere. So, we had a good time, and we continue to be good friends and good neighbors, and throughout all these many, many years. Finally, I'd like to thank a number of people here, and especially the committee, the Hall of Fame committee, for selecting me. And as Chick said, this is a great honor, and it's been a lot of fun looking back on those many, many years and coming up with this brief speech I've made. So to all the 2014 inductees, congratulations. Guys, you did a great job. Thank you.
Joel, I would like to... I was like, you get a jacket too. That's awesome. Thank you, Arthur. Well, Joel, I'd like to submit that we, for next year's Hall of Fame banquet and the inductees, if you could please order some Coke and some peanuts. We would appreciate that and get enough for everyone. What an outstanding coach. Thank you, Arthur, for your dedication and using what you learned from your coach to change lives. We appreciate you. Our next Lifetime Service Award, Jim Houghtaling. Had a brief conversation with him as well, and these are some of the things that I took away. He said, Nate, when I was coaching, attitude was so important. I was asking him, what's your takeaway from wrestling? And he said, you know, attitude. Attitude is everything. And then he said he would always encourage his young athletes to collect memories. To collect memories. I thought, wow. My father just passed away in July, and I'd go visit my mom, and you know, they took a video of his homegoing. That's what we call these 64 years of ministry, 67 years of marriage. And I couldn't help but think about what Arthur said, because as I would go visit my mom, she would have me put in the DVD of the homegoing service with people telling the stories of being with my dad and how he had impacted their lives. I preached a sermon called one time, the title was Rewind Your Mind. When you go through some tough times, you need to rewind your mind and remember the good times. I just thought that was awesome. That was awesome, Jim. Telling them to collect the memories. And that's what we're doing tonight. That's what the National Wrestling Hall of Fame is all about. Enshrining those that have impacted our lives. So future generations of young people can look at what these men have accomplished and dare to pursue those lofty dreams of giving back. Would you please help me to introduce and present the song, Jim Houghtaling.
Thank you, Nate. I'm struggling a little bit with sinus, but we'll do the best we can. Tonight, I'm extremely proud of the fact that I'm being honored with 9 other deserving members of our Ohio wrestling family. Congratulations to all of you. I also want to thank the Hall of Fame Selection Committee for allowing me to be part of the 2014 Hall of Fame. I feel very honored. To be honored by your peers is indeed a very special honor. Those that have gone before me have been quick to recognize that success is rarely achieved alone. Instead, it involves a whole host of supporters and friends. Tonight, I'd like to recognize some of my dearest friends and family, as many of them have traveled a long way to be here tonight. I have out-of-state friends and family from North Carolina, Maryland, Washington, D.C., West Virginia, and Michigan. I would also like to thank my Ohio family and friends who are here tonight. Many of these people have given a lot of their time and talents to help me get to this podium here tonight. Thank you so much. First and most important is my wife Vicki of 44 years. Would you stand, Vicki? Vicki made it possible for me to pursue my dreams by allowing me to spend hundreds and hundreds of hours on the sport I love. Vicki is also the mother of our 2 wonderful children, Jamie and Kenny, who are here tonight with their families. Jamie is here with her husband Jim and our grandsons Aaron and Anderson. They live in North Carolina. My son Ken is here with his wife Chrissy. They live here in Columbus with our 2 grandchildren, Hannah and Gage. Would Jamie and Ken and their families please stand up? I would also like to make you aware of an Ohio wrestling icon who is here this evening. He is Vince Matucci. He's a 2012 Hall of Fame inductee who has devoted over 60 years of his life to Ohio wrestling. Thank you for your friendship and love. I also would like to recognize 3 of my 5 sisters who are here and 4 of my 5 brothers who are here tonight. Could they please stand? Being the oldest boy of 11 children, I learned quickly about hard work. While in high school, I helped a neighbor farmer milk cows before school. Then I went to school, then football or wrestling practice, and then off to usher at the Medina Theater. Working at the theater was my best job because I got free popcorn. And I met my future wife. She was one of the candy girls. I was first exposed to the sport of wrestling at Buckeye High School in Medina County in the winter of 1963. Once I graduated from Buckeye, I enrolled at Baldwin Wallace in Berea. While at BW, I met the entire Tressel family, Eventually, I became the athletic trainer and equipment manager for all sports. While I was in college at Baldwin Wallace, I became aware of a couple sayings that would give a lot of direction to my future life. One was written on the wall of the gymnasium. It read, "It is easy to be ordinary, but it takes courage to excel, and we must excel." These words were the words of a longtime Baldwin Wallace coach, Eddie Finnegan. It's easy to be ordinary, it takes courage to excel, and we must excel. I also learned early on that anything worth doing is worth doing well. My favorite quotation, however, came from the great American by the name of Eleanor Roosevelt. She once said, and I'll quote, "You're only going to be on this earth once. You've got to give it all you got." That saying has meant a lot to me through the years. As soon as I graduated from BW in 1969, I began teaching physical education at Sidney Finn Elementary School in Medina under the guidance of Principal Wes Florian. As a matter of fact, Wes is in the audience tonight. Could I have Wes? He's 81 years old. Wes, would you stand up? Wes was an outstanding principal that had a wrestling background and just happened to be a pretty darn good wrestling official. I think you worked 10 or 11 MITs. I appreciate it, Wes. In September of '72, I was named Medina's head wrestling coach, and a couple of years later, we moved into a brand new high school, and that's when I started the Medina Invitational Wrestling Tournament. I call it the MIT. My one goal as tournament director was to create and run the best high school wrestling tournament in the state of Ohio. Pretty easy, huh? Later on, I called it the greatest show in wrestling. In 1975, we started with 16 teams and quickly grew to 24 by our fourth MIT. One Friday night in December, we finished at 1:30 in the morning with our second session. As a result of finishing that late, I came up with the idea for the match board for our next MIT. We finished at 10:30 that night, thus cutting 3 hours off of just one session of wrestling. During our next MIT, the sixth, was the first time we featured 32 teams, double elimination. Because of the match board, it was no problem to wrestle 793 matches on 6 mats in just 2 days. It didn't take very long for the match board idea to catch on. I continued on as MIT director for 25 years until I retired from teaching in 1999. So if you're here tonight and you ever worked at or participated in any of our 39 MITs, this would include coaches, wrestlers, officials, workers, and spectators. Would you just wave your hand out there if you were in MIT or part of it? Thank you very much. I'd also like to mention that my brother Pete will be working his 39th MIT this December, and his wife Lynn, who came on the scene in 1989, will be working her 26th consecutive MIT. Would you both stand? Thanks, Pete, and thanks, Lynn, for keeping my dream alive. During my 30-year tenure at Medina City Schools, I was the head wrestling coach at Medina High School for 10 years, during which time I coached 2 state champions, as well as a number of placers. I was also an assistant principal at the high school for 10 years. I officiated wrestling for 25 years and worked our state wrestling tournament for 32 years. Around 1978, Vince Gatucci and I created the first vertical wrestling scorecard. They are still being used today at our state tournament some 34 years later. As is the concept of the match board now in its 24th year at our state tournament. I was extremely fortunate to work at our state wrestling tournament for over 32 years under the very able guidance of Dr. Bruce Maurer. Vince Matucci and I made suggestions, and Dr. Maurer allowed them to become a reality. Dr. Maurer asked Vince many times over the years to create artwork for banners, table covers, program covers, and things to make our state tournament special. I helped out by getting them made and delivered. The three of us were a team. And just so that you know that I'm well-rounded and not just wrestling, my wife and I have had our own travel agency for 18 years now. We've enjoyed steamboating to places on the Mississippi and Ohio rivers, as well as cruising in the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, Alaska, and Hawaii, just to name a few. And to break the monotony, I have also designed and built 5 houses for family members in my spare time. If there was more time, I could tell you a few jokes. In closing, I again want to give my wife Vicki a lot of my credit for success. For 44 years, I was able to pursue my dreams thanks to Vicki, patience, and tolerance. It's been a great ride for me. Wrestling is a great sport. It has given me and my family a lot of great memories. Thank you for your kind attention. Good night.
You have to breathe as an inductee. Wow. And excel you did, Jim. Excel you did. Thank you for your time and your dedication. And I could not help but notice the trend that wrestling really impacted you, that you would work at the movie theater. One of the major objectives was the popcorn. And I couldn't help to notice, but your wife had candy. Very influential, yes. Thank you, Shannon. Wow. Our next inductee has made his mark in wrestling. There is no doubt about it. His many accolades, his accomplishments, his family accomplishments speak for themselves. And I had a chance to talk to Jeff a little bit, and so one of the things I asked him when looking at this awesome bio, that failure is part of it. For sure, as John Maxwell said, you can fail at doing something, but that doesn't make you a failure. It's what you learn from falling down that helps you and serve as a catalyst to take you to the top the next time out. So I was talking to Jeff, and I said, Jeff, when was, it's just me. I said, when did you want to quit? You know, to juxtapose it to this awesome bio, what we know about. Was there ever a time that you wanted to quit? And number one was, well, Nate, I got homesick. And I wanted to go home. But you know what he said? I stuck it out. The next time was an injury. When he ruptured a disc in his neck and thought for sure God was saying, hey, it's done, wrestling's done. But he hung in there and wrestled again. And then from there, what a great coach. What a great producer of champions. Would you help me and give a warm welcome for a great wrestling family, Jeff Jordan.
Thanks, Nate. I'm glad I came just a little bit after Nate, because Nate was a bad dude in college. I would like to thank the committee for the induction. It's a great honor and privilege, as well as the other people that got inducted tonight. I would also like to thank Steve Long and Jack Beard. They're the ones I heard that nominated me for this, and they spent their whole life in wrestling, officiating, and I really appreciate them doing that. I mean, Steve and Jack, they've had some great dual meets with Graham, Russell, and Blair, and St. Ed's, and now if they retired, man, I don't know who I'm going to yell at. So I wish those guys the best. What I'd like to talk to you tonight about is not really kind of what I've really done for wrestling, but what wrestling has done for Jeff Jordan. And it has. It's been my life for a long time. It all started, I look back on it, when my dad was a senior in high school at Graham, they started wrestling. My dad never wrestled, but he had two twin brothers that were freshmen. And they joined the squad. My Uncle Bob, his senior year, was the first state qualifier at Graham. But you know what, my dad loved the sport. He loved the competition, he loved the training, he loved that wrestling was an individual sport as well as a team sport. And I never forget, when I was 8, my brother Jimmy was 9, my dad sat us down at the kitchen table. And my dad says, boys, you're never going to be big enough to make it in football. You're never going to be tall enough to make it in basketball. He said, your sport that's going to get you out of St. Paris, Ohio, is a sport called wrestling. And he goes, you know what we're going to do, boys? He said, God give you a little bit of talent, and I want to make you guys work hard. By me making you work hard, you're going to beat 90% of the guys you wrestle. But he said, we're going to do better than that. I'm going to really, really, really work you boys hard, so you can beat 95% of them. And you know what? I just thought my dad was another psycho dad out there, you know. At the age of 8, I sure didn't have anything figured out. But you know what? My dad started teaching me. He started teaching me about hard work, about discipline, through a sport called wrestling. Then when I got to high school, I had a great high school coach. His name was Ron McCunn. And Ron McCunn was like the Bobby Knight of wrestling. Every day he would tell me what his meaning of discipline was. He worked us really hard. He said this, he said, discipline, the definition of discipline is doing what needs to be done when you don't want to do it. Doing what needs to be done even when you don't want to do it. Coach McCunn lost his battle to cancer 7 years ago, but you talk about that second father type figure to a young guy like Jeff Jordan. He really meant a lot to me. I sure miss him. I continued my wrestling career at the University of Wisconsin, where I met a coach that became my idol, my hero, and a friend. His name was Dave Schultz. And Schultz, he taught me many things about wrestling. His technique was 20 years ahead of its time in the sport of wrestling. Every big name wrestler in the country came to Wisconsin to learn his techniques. His technique, I'm convinced it was the best. But what Schultz, he taught me was how to be a coach. This wrestling legend took me, this little farm boy from St. Paris, Ohio, and he built a relationship with me. When I would have a bad practice, Schultz would call me up at 10 o'clock at night. Hey Jordan, let's have breakfast tomorrow. He'd buy me breakfast. You know, when I have a great practice, Schultz would scream my name out, he'd run over, and he would punch me, all right, and tell me, great job. But you know what? The punches hurt when he punched me in the arm, but I craved those punches. I loved him. I dreamed of him to keep doing that. He taught me how to build relationships with kids, because if you build up their confidence in return, you're going to gain that kid's love and respect. I sure miss Schultz, as well as a lot of other people do. I think most of you know he tragically got killed 15 years ago Most of you guys know I run wrestling camps where I have the privilege to work with thousands of kids a year, when I get to build relationships with these young men and try to instill in them the things that some great people instilled in me. I've been really blessed to coach at Graham High School for the last 20 years of my life. I was an assistant for Coach McCunn, my mentor, for 7 years before taking over as head coach. God truly has blessed me with what I love to do. That's helping kids. When I started wrestling at the age of 8, I had no idea that hard work and discipline would get me a college education. That's all my dad wanted for my brother and I. He wanted us to get out of St. Paris, Ohio, and go see the country. And he thought we could do that with wrestling. I had no idea that I would get out of St. Paris, Ohio and see 44 of the 50 states because of wrestling. I also had no idea of all the great people and relationships that I would make through the sport. I had no idea I would come full circle and come back to Graham High School and marry my high school sweetheart and coach where it all started. Yes, wrestling has been very good to Jeff Jordan. So I would like to introduce a couple special people that if it wasn't for a lot of those people at that table, I couldn't do what I do. Coach Greenlee at Wadsworth is a great coach. He's been a great friend of mine. I didn't know how to say his name 25 years ago, so I called him Raviola. So Coach Greenlee, he builds relationships with his kids and just does a great job. Coach Slater, he just became another granddad. His 7th grandchild was born 8 hours ago. He's got a little baby granddaughter named Olivia. So I appreciate what he does. Trey Myers is my junior high coach, and his lovely girlfriend, which is my niece Leanne. And my right-hand man is Jesse Line. He's been with me for 8 or 9 years, and I love all those guys over there. And Jesse's a great guy. His wife Marie is pregnant for the fourth kid. First 3 were girls, but she promised me this one's going to be a boy. So I'd like to introduce my family. 15 and a half years ago, the good Lord brought my youngest son Rocky into my life. So 19 years ago, the good Lord brought my middle son Mickey into my life, and he's a good kid. He's wrestling Ohio State. 21 years ago, the good Lord brought my oldest son Bo into my life, and he's a good kid. He's wrestling Ohio State. But almost 23 years ago, the good Lord brought that hot woman over there, that blonde, into my life, and her name was Amy.
Man, I tell you, wow. Man, just to reflect. And Jeff, that was awesome, encouraging, inspiring. And what I noticed, and just to give a shout out, just great men were placed in his life that impacted him. And we're honoring great men tonight. And then I love how his father just was moved to speak pretty much prophetically. Man, what a father. Because he chose to speak words of blessing over his children. Words of encouragement. And you can't do that enough. The statistics that says that by the time a young person is 17, he will have heard 150,000 no's you can, compared to 5,000 yes you can. And Mr. Jordan Would you please stand? No, then your dad. Well, he's not here.
He's like my dad.
Okay. Well, stand in honor of your dad. Let's give Mr. Jordan, who's not here, a round of applause. Man, you getting inspired? Man, this is like unbelievable. Our next Lifetime Service Award and inductee, Christopher Kallai. Talking to Chris and just sharing, and his brother was a two-time state champion. The family just loves wrestling. That's what I took away from it. And I said, what was the toughest time? What was a struggle? And of course, Chris coached his sons, and he said, well, when my sons stopped wrestling, I thought it was over. And then he said, he stayed in there and kept coaching and found out that all of the wrestlers are his sons. He just stretched his family out to include all the athletes that he influenced. And I'm told his wife, the whole family, loves wrestling. They're involved and they breed in. What a family sport. And his family epitomizes that, a wrestling family along with the Jordan families. I mean, that is awesome. And Chris, thank you for all you do for USA Wrestling. And you do a great job there. Would you help me give a warm welcome for Chris Kallai?
Well, I knew it was coming. I'm going to speak in front of a lot of people again. First thing, I want to thank the committee for giving me this opportunity. Very humbling. My family. That's what wrestling is. Brings me to this point where I want to thank my wife. If I did not have her, I wouldn't be here. She travels everywhere. One of the funny things is I told her I was going to wrestling all the time. I said, I'm going to be busy all the time. I'm going to be coaching the kids, travel. She said, well, you ain't going without me.
I like that.
So, she got involved. She's a national para now, level 1, and her goal is to be an Olympic para. I want to be there with her. She's a great mother, great wife, and a grandmother. Thank you for 35 years. If you don't know her, you will stand up and show everybody who you are. Come on. I'm proud of her. She is out there. Next, I'd like to thank my sons for following me in sport. Christopher, Matthew, and Joshua. They all placed at the state tournament. Christopher, first place. Josh, third place. Matthew, 4-time placer. Champion. If I didn't have them, I probably wouldn't be here either. They were phenomenal. When I wanted to sit down and forget about it, they were there, looking at those faces. They wanted to be champions, and it made me feel like I could get them there. After their wrestling career, like Nate said, I thought about stopping, but they were coaches. They wanted me to help out. Coaches and officials. Then we started freestyle. And then we're wrestling again. It was wonderful. Wrestling through the years with them, watching them, coaching them, now officiating, and now I have grandkids. I ain't going anywhere. My son Matt just had twins 2 weeks ago, a boy and a girl. I told him I was going out to buy pink singlets, because I got another one right there too. So 2 girls, 3 boys, grandpa. It's awesome. So So wrestling's going to be around a while for me. Next, I'd like to thank my family. My sister, brother-in-law, and Larry. My brother Chuck. My sister Marietta. She's over there, she's something else. She's always pushing me, trying to make me better. She's been to some of our tournaments. Can't believe what we can do. My brother-in-law, Esther, Larry, Taylor, they live in the Bahamas. They couldn't make the trip in, too far to come. But they did donate, and I'm thanking them for that. Next, I'd like to thank all my family and friends. Chrissy, Mike Spur, come down. I went to school with them, wrestled with them. On the Coventry team, which won 2 state titles while I was there. It was a fantastic time in my life. Coach Bob Cutts, I think, is the one that instilled the wrestling in me and my family. He's not around with us anymore, but I'm sure he's watching over us. And now Bob Jones was one of my first state champs working with Coach G. It was phenomenal getting beat up every day by a kid that's 5, 10, 15 inches taller than you. And I know a couple of these people here telling stories last night about Bobby beating on them. I got that for about 3 years. And he was phenomenal. Went on to be a 2-time state champ. So it was a great thing, it's a great time. And then I moved on to coaching kids at Uniontown Lake. And all my friends there. Dave Klein, Mike Manley, the Burglars, Ray. He's always relaxing. He's got the wand. I don't know, a lot of you guys out there probably know him, but he can get you to relax when it's time. Then now I got the new guys, the new kids. Zach Carson and his dad's here. Thank you for coming and backing me. And Andy McDowell and the rest of the Lake Wrestling family. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for letting me coach you. Next, through the years, the past 20 years, Steve Deese, Ken Deese, and their families have allowed me to coach with them and help guide young kids in the sport of wrestling at the Firestone Wrestling Clubs. And Firestone's a Sunday thing that we do. We have about 5,000 kids that go through there by the time the state tournament's over. And it's been a privilege to work with them. And then I want to move on to my friends that I've made through USA Wrestling. It's phenomenal what people do, what people can get out of the kids when they're wrestling out of state, out of country, wherever they go. I've got people like Linda Logan from the Sports Commission. I've got, that's Columbus Sports Commission, Mark Lemke, Dave and Meredith Sturba from the Cleveland Sports Commission, USA Ohio, Jeff Coleman, Ryan Marcelli, John Savetti, Leo Saniuk, and all of my USA Ohio directors. I've been the director for USA Ohio for 10 years, and I've made thousands and thousands of friends all over the world. When I say the world, I had that opportunity to be blessed this year with Pete Isaias out in Colorado. He came in tonight, but I was blessed from those guys, Rich Bender, Tony Black, Les Gutches, and Jim Radnick, to allow me and my wife as the first husband and wife to travel to the world team. We went to Croatia to watch the Junior Worlds. Phenomenal. Our wrestlers are phenomenal. I watched every round. I went to everything I could do. My wife's there, we want to go sightseeing. We're going to go sightseeing. I want to watch wrestling. We watched wrestling. I only missed one session, and that was when we went to Yugoslavia, or to Hungary. And then we went to Slovenia, we went to Germany, and then to Austria. And I give all those thanks to the USA Wrestling people and Tony Black for traveling with us and taking us all over the place. You know, I'm here just because of all the people out there. I really want to thank you all for helping me there. Gene Westone from Indiana, Louis Roscoff. There are people that I've met through USA Wrestling. Dennis Thorson, Jill Thorson from Wyoming, and all my friends from all over the country. Bobby Douglas, Nate Carr. He's always trying to take me down, by the way, every time I turn around. But, you know, it really feels good, and I know I'm kind of breaking up because wrestling's my life. But what we do for kids is phenomenal. Keep them off the streets, and to give them dreams. And hopefully, be an Olympic champion someday. And I have met a few of those. Jordan Burroughs, Brandon Slade, Bobby Douglas. Just phenomenal, the people that wrestling can take you to and places that you can go. You know, I have my brothers Chuck and Mike. Mike, watching over us, most of you know him. We lost him a few years ago. And I also want to thank my mom and dad. I'm sure they're watching over us too. But they were wrestling fanatics. Phenomenal. You're all our family. Thank you for being here. And thank you for allowing me to get this award.
Wow, family. It's a family sport. Thank you, Chris, for sharing with us how wrestling has impacted your family. Our next nominee is a very successful coach, a great wrestling official, and for sure has impacted many lives in his lifetime. When talking to Steve Kish, I could not help but be impressed by what he was doing when we were talking on the phone. And he would not share this with you, but he was up in the mountains. Can't remember the location, but he was up in the mountains doing a boot camp for at-risk kids. Wow. What a great ambassador. Changing lives through wrestling. Changing lives by giving back and being a great official. And what he loved the most about wrestling is the one-on-one competition. And then, of course, the teamwork. I couldn't help but think that he had a team with him up in the mountains, helping young people that are struggling, developing programs that would help them be successful. Man, what a great ambassador. Would you give a warm welcome to our next inductee, Steve Kish.
Before I begin, I just heard Jeff Jordan say that he's glad that Nate had gotten out of collegiate wrestling before he started to wrestle. And I heard Nate say that he's married many a man and woman, and that if they ever got in trouble, he's going to put a headlock on them. Nate, I'd like to mention to you something called mistaken identity. I worked 20 Walsh David wrestling tournaments, and I think I saw you at one of the tournaments coaching. And there was a guy that looked a lot like me, and even used my name and said, if you don't sit down, coach, you're out of here. It wasn't me. I hope that didn't count for my time, Joel. I remember that. I said to somebody, who is that guy? He's got arms bigger than my legs. He said, that's Nate Carr. I went, oh my God, I'm dead. Thank you so much to our National Wrestling Hall of Fame Ohio Chapter Committee for this honor. I'm truly honored, humbled, and appreciative. Thank you to each of you and especially to many friends and folks that my relatives and others who have come here. I just met some of you folks 6 or 7 months ago. I'm really appreciative of you coming and some of the fellow officials who are here. I wish to introduce my daughter, Kelly. Could you please, oh, never mind, she's taping this. Just kidding. My daughter, Kelly, who lives in Ashland, Ohio, where she has been a teacher at Ashland High School for the past 15 years, and she works with special education youngsters. My son, Stevie, will you please stand, Stevie? Steve lives in Slidell, Louisiana, where he has served as an oceanographer for the past 7 years with the United States Navy near New Orleans. Thank you so much to Kelly and Stevie for your love, encouragement, and support, and for being here to share in this honor this evening. Again, thank you so much to my friends and folks who have made this trip on a Sunday to come up here and honor and be a part of this. I do want to say how appreciative I am and how honored I am to not only be in the same room with the other inductees, but to be a fellow inductee. You guys have meant so much to the sport of wrestling and helped encourage me to stay in it for so long, and I do appreciate that. I would like to, there should be another award called the Perseverance Award. That would be my girlfriend, Karen. She deserves more than just the Perseverance Award. But Karen, could you please stand for a second? She's a lucky girl. I'll hear about that. I'll tell you, what an honor it is, and Art mentioned it, and Chick mentioned it. We all went to Bridgeport High School. Chick and I wrestled in 1965. He was captain of our team, and great guy. I'm getting emotional talking about Chick Lamotte. He got me emotional doing that. Art Hehr, two-time state champion, Bobby Douglas. There's a picture in one of the papers of the 4 of us. I couldn't be prouder than to have my picture with those 3 other guys, and I congratulate them for all they've done and what they've meant to me as a person involved with the sport of wrestling. Just we're limited by time. I use some of my time to apologize for someone else, to Nate. Wrestling has meant a great deal to me. I've been involved with wrestling since I learned about it at the age of 10 years old with the Wheeling YMCA in Wheeling, West Virginia. I've been involved as a coach, a participant, and a referee for 53 years. And I'm still going to be involved helping Jim Freeland and Ray and a lot of the guys in terms of being a volunteer observer. Now, a volunteer observer means exactly what it says. You observe and you ain't getting no money. You ain't getting mileage and you ain't getting a room. But you love wrestling, so that's where I am now. I'm going to be a volunteer, but I'm still involved with the great sport of wrestling. I really believe that 70 to 80% of the folks that I know and consider friends are through this sport of wrestling. And I wouldn't have known you or met you if it hadn't been for this sport that we love so much. Secondly, as an administrator, a teacher, coach, principal, superintendent, I've always believed in something I've heard Ronnie Mock say it too. I don't achieve great things, we achieve great things. That the teamwork concept is something that I've always believed in and we've always utilized, and that came from the sport of wrestling. And finally, I came close to quitting wrestling when I was losing 30 pounds from 142 to 112. And I didn't want to quit, but my parents said, get out of that, you're hurting yourself. I'm really glad I didn't quit, because that would have been the easiest thing in the world to do, and I know I would have quit other things. Because of that, wrestling, the sport of wrestling, I went to college. I wanted to coach. You couldn't coach unless you had a college degree at that time, so it got me to go into the sport of wrestling and get a college degree. And the idea of quitting is never an option, and the work ethic from the sport of wrestling is that you give your best at all times. That's something wrestling has meant to me. In closing, I humbly accept being inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Ohio chapter on behalf of my daughter Kelly, my son Steve, my girlfriend Karen. 3 people are with us now, my dad, mom, and sister. I guarantee they're looking down. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And I do remember you, and that was a bad cold. Nothing personal. Wow. Thank you, Steve, very much for your time and your dedication to others. Our next Lifetime Service Award inductee, man, you read the bio, it's impressive. He's pretty much been winning all of his life. I was wondering if I should call him Frank Gable. Frank Romano, our next inductee. When I was talking to Frank, I was basically saying, coaching high school, I mean, he's been from high school all the way to college, and he's been successful all the way up, but not only that, as a competitor, he's been successful. But I was impressed by his #1 focus, and that is to provide his young athletes with an education so that they could go on and do great things. A champion coach, main focus is to help his athletes not only win on the mat, but to receive an education and to produce great students. Will you help me give a warm welcome for our next inductee, Frank Romano.
Most people think that giving a speech is probably the most difficult thing to do. People get afraid, they get scared. But when you're among family and friends, it's easy. So I'm among a lot of family and friends tonight, so this will be easy. I want to recognize my sister Mary Joy and her husband Bill, who is state champion in Ohio, and my cousins Ginny and Neil Teresi and their wife Gail, Nancy Baird, Dr. Nancy Baird, all my friends that have come here from far away as California, my college teammates, I hope I don't miss anybody, Jim Humphrey, who's in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Dr. Greg Mondini, who was my roommate, John Groves, who was my teammate, and he was captain of Ohio State like I was, my best friend in college, Tom Cruzy, who were co-captains together, and all my high school teammates, including Mike Malkovich Jr., Dan Malkovich, Conrad Callender, Mike Beckany, Derek Beckany, who came all the way from California to be with us. So many people, it's just overwhelming. The sport of wrestling has been, my whole life. I've been involved in wrestling for 55 years. I was very fortunate. I grew up in Maple Heights. And when you grow up in Maple Heights, you have to wrestle. Because they don't let you do anything else. I was on a junior high team that never lost a match. I was on 3 high school teams, we never lost a match. I personally never lost a dual meet. I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate because of Pat Palumbo, who was one of my coaches, and Bill Barrett, who were in the crowd. And I went to Ohio State because of Pat Palumbo. He was captain of the team there, and I followed in his footsteps. And I've just been very, very fortunate. I've been able to coach and stay in the sport for many, many years. And I'm not done yet, by the way. Some people ask me about that, but I think I need to continue until I can't do it anymore. And so I feel very, very blessed, being in the great state of Ohio and being able to have wrestled at Maple Heights with all those great teams, and being able to be at Ohio State, the greatest university in the world, and having so many friends and family supporting me through the years. It's been absolutely unbelievable. And I just want to try to continue as much as I can. I know I miss Gary Ceresi. He was my teammate too. And most of those guys that I wrestled with, both in high school and college, there's just no way to replace them. I was also fortunate, once I did leave the high school ranks after I was head coach at Maple Heights after Big Mike, I ran into Ronald Gray, who recently got inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame as a distinguished member. So everybody I was associated with, including Big Mike, who's in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame as a distinguished member, and Coach Ron Gray, along with my college coach, Casey Fredericks, who's in the Helms National Hall of Fame. I was just very fortunate. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time and got the right advice, and like some of the other inductees mentioned, I listened. I paid attention, and got the work ethic that was needed in our sport. Our sport is very unique. If you don't have the work ethic or the self-discipline, you will not succeed. I tell the guys on my team that all the time, and some of them listen and some of them don't. But the ones that do listen, if they have the talent, they'll do well. My current position at Notre Dame is probably the best job I've ever had. Our athletic director, Scott Swain, is here, an Ohio State graduate, by the way. Is the best job I've ever had. We won 7 national titles in various divisions, including NEI, Division II, and the NCAA, which is the National Collegiate Wrestling Association. But that never would have happened without support from administrators, from athletes, and from support from family members and everybody else. You can't do anything by yourself. No matter what you know, no matter how well you know it, you can't do anything without support. And I've had great support every place I've ever been, and I hope to continue at Notre Dame as long as we possibly can. Last year we got lucky, the national tournament was in Cleveland, and so we got to light up the terminal tower in our colors because we won, and that really was nice. And so I want to thank the committee for Bobby Stoll and Andy DeSabato, who were great supporters, and Mr. Bob Dealey Sr., and all the other people who have supported me over the years. It's been a wonderful, wonderful run, but it's not over yet. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Well, our last inductee, I remember him when I was coaching at West Virginia, and what a scrappy wrestler he was. And he also called me, as I stated earlier, an underachiever, because I had 7 and my dad had 16. And I challenged him to break my record of 7. And they said no, they declined already. This guy's a great person, great All-American, and I love his transparency when I was talking to him. And again, this is a guy that loves wrestling, and he said something to this effect: Nate, I went to college to wrestle. That was it. That's what he was saying. I went to college. I love wrestling. I went to college to wrestle. But I came out with an education. And I know him and his wife are great champions. He started 2 businesses, just recently sold 1. But what he learned from wrestling, his takeaway, is that he learned to be independent. He learned that it's whatever goes on the mat, it's on you and no one else. And he said that's been one of the biggest takeaways in his life. Please welcome this 2-time All-American from Cleveland State University, our next inductee, Dave Zahoransky.
So I had to write it down, a few things and thoughts. Don't worry, I got about 10 pages here. I would first like to thank the committee for inducting me into the National Hall of Fame. When I received the call that I was being inducted, my first thoughts were that you run out of nominees. Coach Bonacci's always been the best negotiator for me. He's been great. The reality is wrestling is a hard and grueling sport. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of heart, a lot of time, and a little bit of crazy. I had one of those 4 traits, and you can probably guess which one. I know this is supposed to be about what I've accomplished, but I was fortunate to have two individuals that have influenced me the most and have made me what I am today. When I was in high school, I was a decent wrestler, not really anything special. At the end of my junior year, I met Tony DiGiovanni, who changed my wrestling career forever. Before I met Tony, I was a district qualifier. After one summer, several practices and workouts, I placed 4th in the state as a senior. Tony was a coach that would help anyone who wanted to better themselves in wrestling. He would tell you the things you needed to do to improve and would let you know when your head was not in the right place. Tony was responsible for me continuing my wrestling career at Cleveland State, and that's where I met a second person, Coach Bonacci. Coach Bonacci took a chance on a kid without any guarantees. To this day, I'm not sure what he saw in me. I'm pretty sure it wasn't my charm. Maybe it was the crazy. There are not many people as good and genuine as Coach. This is someone who had literally raised hundreds of wrestlers while coaching for over 36 years at Cleveland State, and he supported them through thick and thin. Coach taught me 2 valuable life lessons. Number 1, marry rich. You can learn to love her. My father-in-law was supposed to be here, but he's not feeling well. And my comment to him is, sorry, Jim, I thought you were an MD, not a PhD, when they call him a doctor. And the second thing is never admit anything, even if you're caught doing it. And many times we were. Coach rightfully received this honor several years ago. And for me to be inducted in the same hall as Coach is an honor and a privilege. Nate was saying, when I went to Cleveland State, I went there to wrestle. Classes were something I went to because everyone else did. In my junior year, 2 things occurred. First, the dean of the business college invited me to his office. Big fan of wrestling, went to all the matches. He told me that in order to be in the business school, I needed to start taking business classes. Go figure. Secondly, my roommate, Danny Kelly, and my girlfriend were always in the library. And so I decided I would go with them. It's amazing. Lots of books. Quiet. Some of you would have known this, but it was news to me. I began to get the drive to not only succeed at wrestling, but to make something of myself personally. Remember, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by supportive people that also wanted me to succeed. Not everyone is that fortunate. Although some of life's lessons in sports are tough at times, I now realize how important they were. Tony would come to our matches and write in the outside margins of the program where he thought I was being lazy or doing something wrong. He was usually right, although I would not admit it at the time. Coach would help us out any way he could, even financially. Coach, you're an amazing role model for a lot of us. I met my wife during my wrestling career at CSU. In the library, go figure. My focus was always on wrestling, but now I needed to split my focus. Let me tell you, I did not always do this well. 24 years of marriage and 4 children later, I guess I did okay. My wrestling accomplishments are just that, plaques on the wall. My true accomplishment are my children, Sydney, Jordan, Bailey, and Tristan. While I'm always proud to be the father, I'm not always as good in telling them out loud. As with wrestling, I am better with actions than words. Just know, kids, there's no better award than being your dad. I would like to give special thanks to my wife. Dear, why don't you stand up? Special thanks for 25 years of support with wrestling as well as the family. Without her, I would not be receiving this award today. She has always been there for the kids and me and never gets the recognition she deserves. So thanks for all you do, on and off the mat. For the kids and me, and in most cases, I'm included as one of the kids. There are so many people that have touched and influenced my life. It is really with age that you start to recognize and appreciate this. I have been fortunate to have my mother's support and my in-laws, Jim and Margie, to have my back. Jim has been a father figure to me, especially when he mentioned He knew I would never just string his daughter along without thinking of marriage.
Very subtle, Jim.
My wife is always astonished by the connections wrestlers have in the small world we live in. She believes that a phone call to ask for a kidney would be an immediate yes, if from one wrestler to another. She's probably right. I recognize how fortunate I've been and that through wrestling my life has taken a path of determination and ultimate personal and financial success. I am an example of someone who without a doubt can look you straight in the eyes and tell you that wrestling not only changed my life but probably saved it as well. People thank me for helping young wrestlers financially or students in need. If I can make just a small amount of the impact Coach and Tony had on me to someone else, I'm a lucky man. I appreciate this honor and grateful to be part of a unique world of wrestling. I also want to congratulate the other inductees and thank my friends that wrote recommendation letters for me, Pat, Guy, Bob, and Tony, and also the friends that are here today, Joe and Nancy. Wrestling is a sport of commitment and dedication. There may only be a small duration in someone's life physically, but the personal and mental benefits are life-lasting. Thank you very much for this award. We good?
You don't forget your jacket.
Gordie. I'd like to acknowledge the donors and the sponsors who look at the program. We appreciate the money they contribute to the hall. Also, the honorees meet over here when it's over so we can take some pictures together as a group, and we'll send that photo to the National Wrestling Association. So Nate, why don't you pick a lucky person to win the 50-50. The winner will get $275 decided by 10%.
I thought that was 20.
And the number is 075280. Last 3 digits, 280.
This looks weird taking a picture like this.
Wow, thank you. I'll tell you what, I didn't go to church today, but we got a sermon, we were blessed. They did do a great job. It's a committee meeting. We wanted to have presenters, but it would took like 8 presenters, 5 minutes, that's 40 more minutes. And we did this, it's 6:15. But he took it on himself and said, look, I'll take care of that. I'll call him, I'll talk to him. And man, you are good.
Well, thank you. Just on our closing here, and we'll let you go. Please remember, man, I was just so inspired. Were you inspired? Just raise your hand. Were you encouraged by our inductees? And as I said earlier about successful people build good relationships. They're sensitive to the needs and feelings of others. They're considerate and respectful. They have a way of bringing out the best in other people. Man, there is no way that you can leave here and not be inspired, not be ready to have a positive response for anything. And I close with this. It reminds me of the young man that went to a positive motivational class, and he went home and he grabbed his baseball bat and he grabbed his ball and he looked into the mirror and he said, I am the best baseball player in the world. And so he looked at the ball, squeezed the bat tightly, threw it up, watched it, timed it, swung, and missed. Picked the ball up again and said, I am the best baseball player in the world. Cringing his face again, tightly squeezing the ball, threw it up, watched it with his eyes, timed it, missed again. Picked the ball up again, looked in the mirror, and said, I'm the best baseball player in the world. Looking at the ball for seconds, squeezing it, throwing it up, watching it, timing it, missed again. And he picked it up and said to himself, what a pitcher.